Okay, screw that. I'm starting already. Hi, welcome. Hi and welcome. Good morning. Good morning. So I feel like I need to talk about this, but if you didn't know, somehow, there's a lot going on in the world right now. I would just like to say, this is all I'll say about it. Fuck ICE. Anyway, we are here reading Scum Villain Self-Saving System, Volume 2. We are on Chapter 6. I believe we're at the beginning of the chapter, the page 40. If not, then we'll just read it again, I guess. I don't know. You're streaking! No! Oh no! Anyway, I woke up a couple hours ago. I'm still a little sleepy, but oh my god, you guys don't even know what's in store for this chapter! Unless you've already read it before, in that case, you know I am excited. Also, my V-Bridger is still not working, so the tracking is a little bit silly. But what am I supposed to do about it? Fix it? I don't think so. Bro, I spent so long trying to fix it. I don't know what's wrong with it. Just does this from time to time. Anyway, I have some tea. How's your day going so far? Before we get started, how was your day going? I did get the I saved the illustrations as JPEGs instead of GIFs, so I should be able to share them. Been creative for no reason? Oh, what could it be? Alright, I have this really nice tea, but it does have caffeine in it. It's rooibos. Wait, is rooibos caffeine free? Never mind. That's not caffeinated. Rooibos isn't caffeinated, is it? Anyway, it does have like sweetener in it already, so I don't know if it's gonna affect my voice. It really shouldn't. Last times I've drank it a couple times, didn't hurt, but we'll see. It's caffeine adjacent, kind of like matcha. Okay, but matcha has caffeine in it. Not too good, but I'm fine. Oh, as long as you're still kicking. We've got this. This is so sweet. Also, welcome, Yamini. Alright. Alright. Let's get started, shall we? I believe top of page 40 on chapter 6 called Jinlan. We're gonna go into a bit of a backstory, I believe. Yes, Shen Qingqiu is talking to... What the hell is his name again? Oh no, what is his name? Gong Yizhao. Yeah. Alright, let's just get straight into it. Actually, I need... Okay, yeah. They're talking about how Lo Bingke got there. Alright. It was Qin Shimei. Last year, she rescued a grievously injured and unconscious Lo Shishong on the banks of the Lo River. Last year... wait, who is speaking now? Okay. Last year, in only one short year... Okay. Oh my god, okay. Sorry, reading brain is not on yet. Okay. Last year, in only one short year, Lo Bingke had kicked Gong Yizhao off of his pedestal, and as the most trusted disciple. It seemed that not only had Lo Bingke's annexation of Huanhua Palace occurred earlier, but his efficiency had improved. Also, Gong Yizhao really was doomed to be cannon fodder, fate only to be kicked off of various number 1 pedestals by the male lead. After you rescued him, why didn't he return to Sangcheng Mountain Sect? Shen Qingqiu asked. Gong Yizhao took careful stock of Shen Qingzhou's expression, and he spoke cautiously. Once Luo Shishong was rescued and woke up, he seemed to be unwilling to bring up the past. When he was delivering his farewells, he disclosed that he wouldn't return to Sangchong Mountain Sect, and that he hoped Huanhua Palace would keep his whereabouts a secret. It seemed he intended to wander the world, but our master thinks very highly of Luo Shishong, so he vigorously urged him to stay. They don't call each other master and disciple, but with the way our master treats him, he's already no different than a succeeding heir. So that's how it was. No wonder that the Huanhua Palace disciples had shown such a hostile attitude toward Shen Qingzhou just a moment ago. This act of Luo Binghe's was his standard trampled white lotus who silently endures. People had no doubt begun to think, if everything is fine, why would Luo Binghe be unwilling to return? Maybe it's because Sangchong Mountain Sect, and Shen Qingzhou in particular, have wronged him. That false news of his death at the Immortal Alliance Conference must be covering up some terrible secrets. Luo Binghe's brainwashing skills weren't just talk. Having seen how those disciples blindly and fastidiously followed him, Shen Qingzhou knew exactly where Luo Binghe stood with Huanhua Palace. A disciple from Sect A took a trip to Sect B. Subsequently, the entire hierarchy of Sect... Oh, this book is hard to read. Subsequently, the entire hierarchy of Sect B from top to bottom cried and begged for him to stay, and even hid and concealed him so other sects wouldn't find out. How unscientific and unreasonable. But with the male lead's halo shining down upon the situation, it was absolutely logical. Shen Qingzhou was silent. Gong Yizhao thought him sad and disappointed. His beloved disciple hadn't died, but he had instead preferred to roam around the world instead of returning to see him. Of course, this was a painful tragedy. So Gong Yizhao offered consolation. Senior Shen shouldn't pay it any mind. Perhaps Luo Shishong is struggling with the temporary internal conflict that he's yet to resolve. Before now, he never left Huanhua Palace's sphere of influence, yet when he heard that Sangchong Mountain's Senior Shen was participating in rescue efforts here, he took the initiative and asked to come. Perhaps there's been some turn for the better, although my Shidi and Shimei... On this matter, I believe they've misunderstood, Senior. I hope you won't hold it against them. Shen Qingzhou's heart was as choked as a dammed-up river. Sure enough, the positive reputation he'd painstakingly farmed over many years with nothing in the face of Luo Binghe's ability to smear him without second thought. And what a thorough smearing. But on second thought, this couldn't actually be considered smearing. After all, Shen Qingzhou hadn't been wrongly accused in this case. He had indeed kicked Luo Binghe down into the endless abyss. In the end, he couldn't find any reason to justify or exonerate himself. And you? Shen Qingzhou asked. Why don't you misunderstand? Gong Yizhao was stunned for a short while. Then he said, Though I don't know what exactly happened in Judy Gorge, I wholeheartedly believe that Senior isn't the sort of person who would harm his own disciple. As he said this, Gong Yizhao was thinking back on their meeting in Bailu Forest. Specifically, he was remembering the things Shen Qingzhou had accidentally let slip, and the way he'd affectionately gazed upon that monster. Meanwhile, Shen Qingzhou was thinking, it makes sense. Since we're both cannon fodder fated to fall to the male lead's indestructible body, we're able to understand and sympathize with each other's situations more than anyone else. Boy, you'll fall, right? I need to drink some tea. Oh, that's sweet. Therefore, both parties were moved. While they were busy being pleased with their own minds, the group of Huanhua Palace caught up with them. Shen Qingzhou accidentally glanced back and saw Luo Binghe was looking over in his direction. In the brief incensed time since his reunion with Luo Binghe, it seemed that Shen Qingzhou's heart had become quite a bit more delicate. It often felt like a small boat caught in a raging sea amidst a storm. For example, at present, though Lo Binghe wasn't standing anywhere close to him, and had maintained an appropriate smile, that pair of cold, pitch-black eyes pierced him with incredible force, making Shen Qingzhou's heart tremble in fright. Binghe, what's wrong now? Even the sight of cannon fodder talking and huddling together is warmth offends you? Upon arriving at the entrance of Jinzi weapons shop, Shen Qingzhou heard someone inside who was arguing loud enough to shake the roof. This was all thanks to Lu Qingge. Lu Qingge was responsible for the hard labor, and after they'd separated, he'd gone to capture experimental subjects for Mu Qingfan. With the people in the city so on edge, no one was willing to cooperate. However, at this point, they didn't have the luxury to be concerned with consent, so they had resorted to martial power to solve that problem. On top of that, Lu Qingge had never been the sort of patient person who preferred reason over force. His approach was highly consistent with Baijian Peak's customs. He simply went out and grabbed whoever he saw. In one pass, he had collected more than 10 burly macho men, then tied them up by the forge, which had now become Mu Qingfan's research lab and experimental station. This group of big, strong men were shouting, cursing, crying, and wailing so terribly that no woman could have overcome their performance. Once Shen Qingzhou arrived in the cellar, he explained the unexpected events he had just experienced to his companions. However, for the time being, he didn't bring up that he himself had been infected. Bro! I think sometimes he's very dumb. Master Wu Chen once again chanted Amitabha. Thanks to our fellow cultivators from Sangchong Mountain, we finally made progress on this matter. I'm afraid it's not that straightforward, said Shen Qingzhou. The infected cannot infect each other, and according to Qingjing Peak's ancient texts, the largest recorded number of people a single sower has infected in one go is only around 300. If a population as large as an entire city has been infected, there absolutely has to be more than just one culprit. Lu Qingge placed his hand on his sword's hilt and stood. Shen Qingzhou knew he was the type to act first and think later, to up and leave without another word. He indubitably wanted to set out and find other sowers this instant. Sit down, Shen Qingzhou said hurriedly. I still have something else to say. Go ahead, Xishong, said Mu Qingfan. Shen Qingzhou didn't know how to start, and he hesitated for a moment before saying, Lo Binghe is back. There was little reaction. In the first place of the three, Master Wu Chen was from Jiaohua Monastery and didn't know this Lo Binghe. Meanwhile, Mu Qingfan rarely cared about things other than medicine. Thus, it was only Lu Qingge who frowned. That disciple of yours? He asked, stunned. Didn't he die at the hands of demons during the Immortal Alliance conference? Shen Qingzhou found it was getting harder to explain. He didn't die. He came back alive. It's a long story. He stepped forward. Let's patrol the city first. I'll explain this in detail when we get back. All right, said Mu Qingfan. The earlier we take care of the remaining sowers, the fewer horrors the people will suffer. I should also go check on those patients. As soon as he spoke, Shen Qingzhou thought of that brightly shining set of silver surgical tools Mu Qingfang always carried with him, which included all kinds of knives and needles. When spread out, they seemed to belong to the scene of a forensic autopsy. There were also hundreds upon thousands of bottles and jars in his infinite storage, with all sorts of labels. The words and descriptions on those labels were just like the flavor and effects of the contents within, stuff that made people go green upon hearing, let alone smelling, that made their courage flee with a glance. In a moment, that group of macho men by the forging station upstairs likely really would blow their lids, and the roof with it. Shen Qingzhou let out a dry laugh. He was about to follow Lu Qingge out of the cellar when, from out of nowhere, his heartbeat suddenly seemed 100 times louder, his movements also slowed, becoming sluggish. Lu Qingge sensed that something was off and immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Lu Qingge! Shen Qingzhou didn't answer and only tried to summon a spiritual blast with his right hand. A feeble spiritual flow sputtered through it, forming not a single spark. Fuck me. Of course I have a flare-up at such an important time. Are you kidding me? Without a cure, Mu Qingfang said quietly. Lu Qingge pressed his fingers to Shen Qingzhou's pulse, waiting there for a moment before resolutely pushing him back down onto a chair. Sit here and wait. Wait for what? For Lo Bingge to show up at their door? Shen Qingzhou shot to his feet. I'm going with you. Lu Qingge never gave others face when speaking. Don't be a hindrance. Master, you're the Baijian Peak Lord, capable of single-handedly holding off thousands of enemies. How would letting me fly with you be a hindrance? Shen Shishong, have you taken your medications today? Was it on time? Mu Qingfang asked. Shen Shizhou truly wanted to scream at the heavens. I haven't given up on therapy. I clearly took my medicine on time this month, and I had Great Master Lu help circulate my meridians on time too. Exactly why would it randomly flare up? It's basically lightning on a clear day. I'm utterly baffled. At this moment, the system just had to, of all things, send a sudden notification. Protagonist satisfaction points plus 100. Get lost! What are you saying with this? Whenever Shen Qingzhou meets misfortune, the male lead is extra satisfied? Shen Shishong, you must not force yourself, Mu Qingfang added. Lu Shishong is also doing this for your own good. Exerting yourself and rushing around during a flare-up is enormously dangerous. You stay here and rest. I'll go prepare medicine. Wait for Lu Shishong to return, and then he'll help clear your meridians. Shen Qingzhou stood 3 times, but Lu Qingge pushed him back down every single one, and Mu Qingfang's tone was that of a man lecturing an unruly child. In the end, Shen Qingzhou could only helplessly say, Very well. Lu Shidi, listen to me. A sower's entire body is covered with scarlet skin, and they are highly infectious. If you meet something suspicious that looks similar, don't be rash and get close. Attack from afar. Once you return, you must come to my room without delay. I have something very important to discuss with you. The last sentence was most critical. Shen Qingzhou deliberately enunciated the words with added emphasis. Comradeship is priceless and fraternal love supreme. 1,000 days are spent training troops for the sake of one moment. Master Lu, you absolutely must shield me. Fucking love it. Oh my god, I love Lu Qingge. He deserves better. I know. You know how many fics I've read with the pairing Shen Qingzhou, Lu Qingge? Oh no. Also, Lo Bingge, but yeah. Yeah, I just love them so much. Alright. After the Lu-Mu pair left the cellar, Wu Chen descended into intense thought. Immortal Master Shen, don't you think it strange? He asked. The demon realm was quiet for so long, yet in recent years there seem to be signs of a resurgence. At the last Immortal Alliance conference, numerous rare demonic creatures reappeared in the human realm. And this incident in Jinlan City is even more troubling. Sowers appearing now after they were eradicated 100 years ago. This one worries that this, most likely, isn't a good omen. Shen Qingzhou profoundly agreed. Master, your apprehensions are exactly why I can't be at ease, and this iteration of sowers are markedly stronger than their predecessors. None of the sowers I read about from 100 years back were able to prevent the infection from traveling a certain distance from them, lest they undergo accelerated decay. Uh, oops. Moreover, Lobinka should have remained in the Endless Abyss for 2 more years, yet he's broken out early. How could this be a good fucking omen? Their compatibility is really good. It really is. I can't. I just really love that this whole series is just Shen Qingqiu collecting a harem against his not will. He just doesn't realize it. He just just stupid. Hello, bottom. Hello, loser. After being infected, Master Wu Chen's martial aspect had been heavily damaged, and the drain on his energy was enormous. Not long into their discussion, he became tired. Shenzhou helped him lie down, and then did his best to quietly leave the cellar. They had hidden Wu Chen within the cellar so he wouldn't be exposed to light or the elements. Shenjingzhou's actual room was on the second floor of the weapons shop's inner courtyard. Lu Qingge had yet to return, and at this time it would have been impossible for Shen Qingzhou to sleep even if he'd wanted to. He sat at a table and lost himself in his thoughts. One moment, he'd think of the little lamb Lo Binghe, who'd always followed him around while calling him Shizun. In the next, he'd think of that Black Lotus Lo Binghe he'd only just met, who had left him so thoroughly drenched in unease that he wanted to rip out all his hair. After an unknown length of time, someone knocked on the door twice, neither light nor heavy. Shenjingdo hastily stood from the table. Lushidi, I've been waiting for you all night. Come in, quickly. Don't say that! He is collecting Pokemons. He's collecting cultivators. The room's set of double doors flew open. Lo Binghe stood in the entrance. Behind him was unbounded darkness. His eyes were tucked behind his back. What the? My bad. His hands were tucked behind his back. His lips curved slightly upward, but his eyes seemed like icy pools 1,000 meters deep. Yet those eyes smiled as he said, Shizun, hello. Oh shit, he's here! All at once, it was as if Shen Qingzhou's brain had started boiling, catching fire with a whoosh. Fuck! The ring was playing out live right before his eyes! He grabbed his fan and, with a nimble flip, leapt out the window. Lo Binghe had finally done away with that goosebump-raising mask he'd worn during the day and exposed his true nature, and he'd come to make his teacher pay. He'll make you do something. Shen Qingzhou's flight was an entirely unconscious impulse. The poser habits he'd developed over so many years allowed him to persevere so that even while fleeing his movements were easy and graceful. He landed solidly on the ground and, with a tap of his foot, darted away like a flying bird. Lo Binghe's clear, bright voice pierced far through the air, reaching his ears while carrying a hint of cold, drifting laughter. During the day, Shuzhen was so intimate and gentle with Gong Yi Zhao, and this evening you lit a lantern, waiting for Lu Shishu until late into the night. What sincere affection! Why, then, are you so distant when it comes to this disciple? He thinks he's fucking all these men. And I don't blame him. I would if I was in his shoes as well. Fuck! It feels like he's cutting the distance in half with every sentence. This speed is unscientific. Shen Qingzhou drew in a deep breath, thinking that whatever happened, he ought to find himself some backup first. He shouted from the pit of his stomach, "Lu Qingge!" I can't shout, but yeah, he does that. Of course he does. Luo Binghe's voice drew even closer. It was no longer as tender this time around, and instead it came with a wintry laugh. Lu Shishu is embroiled in a fight, so I'm afraid he doesn't have the leisure to come. Shizun, if you have orders, why not give them to me? I wouldn't dare! Shen Qingzhou understood that Luo Binghe must have delayed Lu Qingge by some means. Aid from that quarter couldn't be counted on. He swiftly poured his entire body's spiritual energy downward, hoping to boost his speed. But of course, he just had to forget that he was in the middle of a without-a-cure flare-up. By the time he remembered it, it was already too late. In an instant, it was like all the blood in Shen Qingzhou's body had solidified, and his entire form felt suddenly heavy. In the next moment, a hand flashed forward to clutch his throat as he... My God, hang on! In the next moment, a hand flashed forward to clutch his throat, and his back crashed into a cold, solid rock wall, the pain resonating from his flesh to his spine, his head buzzing. Luo Binghe was already within arm's reach. He had slammed Shen Qingzhou into the wall with one hand. The back of Shen Qingzhou's skull rang with the crash, and he swooned. It took a great while before he could refocus his gaze. Under the streaming moonlight, Luo Binghe looked even more peerlessly beautiful, as if his silhouette had been carved from ice and jade. He pressed very close, and he spoke with slow deliberation. After so many years of separation, we meet amidst golden wind and jade dew, yet Shizun insistently calls someone else's name. That truly saddens this disciple a little. Amidst golden wind and jade dew has a footnote from the poem. Can't read that because that is in Chinese. Translated as Immortals at the Magpie Bridge, which describes the annual meeting between the cowherd and the weaver girl during Qi Shi, also known as Chinese Valentine's Day. He's never giving up on his first love, ever. He says he's sad and broken-hearted, but there's a smile on his lips and bloodlust in his eyes. Any way you look at it, he's lying through his teeth. Shen Qingzhou felt as if his neck were caught in an iron shackle. His throat bobbed with difficulty, and it was hard to breathe, let alone speak. He could still manage to form a sword seal with his fingers, but his spiritual energy circulation was sluggish, so it was pointless anyhow. No matter how perfect a seal he formed, he couldn't move Shu Ya. And Luo Binghe was pressing harder and harder, his hand gradually tightening. Suddenly, there was a flash before Shen Qingzhou's eyes, and a giant dialogue box popped up. This dialogue box was entirely different from the one before. Before, they'd uniformly looked like Windows XP error windows, but now it was subdued, lavish, and sophisticated. Wait, the main point was the content. Accept a system tip to resolve the small complication our valued customer is facing. You call this a small complication? Shen Qingzhou mentally shouted himself hoarse. All right, is there still an easy mode? Easy mode, please. Access privileges activated. Use key item to maintain state of living. Shen Qingzhou's vision was about to go dark from suffocation. There's a key item? How many B points to buy it? Tell me! Item is already in your inventory. Use item, fake jade guanyin, and to consume 100 of Luo Binghe's anger points. Oh shit, the only thing Luo Binghe's adoptive mother left to him, the fake jade guanyin. Right after arriving to this world, he'd acquired this life-saving item, a high-tier piece of equipment. How did he keep forgetting? He still had this get-out-of-jail-free card tucked away in his bosom. System, you finally gave me a useful reminder. Shen Qingzhou mentally shouted, I will, I will, I will! His throat was about to be squeezed in two. Please note, this item is single-use and can consume a maximum of 5,000 of Luo Bingke's anger points. At the final moment, Shen Qingzhou yanked on his reins. Stop! This was Luo Bingke at only 100 anger points? Are you messing with me? If he's already this tall, dark, and deadly at 100 anger points, I don't even dare imagine what a vision he'd be at 5,000. But the point was that if Shen Qingzhou was going to use an item that could potentially negate 5,000 points on a situation that was worth only 100, and thereby lose the chance to use it ever again, even if it was a matter of life and death, he needed some time to agonize and struggle. Then again, if things went on like this, it was either death from suffocation or from a pulped throat. Don't say that. Well, don't say that. Just when Shen Qingzhou made up his mind, preparing to grit his teeth and use his life-saving item, the hand around his neck suddenly loosened. There was no way he could get away even if he tried to run, so he could only continue his poser act, pretending to be chill about it. Shen Qingzhou propped himself up on the wall, barely managing to stand upright and not sink to his knees on the spot. Seconds ago, Luo Bingke had almost choked him to death, and now he was coming over all smiles to help him up, just like in the past when he had helped Shen Qingzhou alight from carriages or brought him snacks. Shen Qingzhou actually forgot to struggle. All he could feel was this schizophrenic behavior was making his hair stand on end. Luo Bingke sighed. Why did Shizun run so fast? This disciple almost couldn't catch up. Bullshit. As if Luo Bingke hadn't just spent ages chasing him down in a game of cat and mouse, as if it were nothing. He wasn't even short of breath. Shen Qingzhou panted, then gingerly opened his mouth, his voice a bit hoarse. You have quite some nerve, returning in such a grandiose fashion. Aren't you afraid someone will discover your true identity? Luo Bingke's eyes flashed. Is Shizun concerned or worried? Shen Qingzhou thought this an interesting reply. In these circumstances, was there any difference between concerned and worried? He couldn't resist asking. Unless you think I won't tell anyone. Luo Bingke looked at him again. Luo Bingke looked at him, then said pityingly, Shizun, that would require someone to believe you. Sorry, he's so fine. he's so fine. Oh my god. It's normal for him? Shen Qingzou's heart thumped. So this meant that just like in the original work, Luo Bingke was planning to first utterly destroy Shen Qingzhou's reputation, then painstakingly, step by step, force him down the road to ruin, methodically toying with him until he died. The original Shen Qingzhou had two major scummy qualities. One, attempting to get a taste of countless young ladies and married women alike. Two, murdering tons of his comrades as well as other people. But now, when Shen Qingzhou considered himself, after he'd taken this shell, he conclusively hadn't inherited these interests and ambitions from the original. Could Luo Bingke still destroy his prestigious reputation and place in society? Friendly reminder, of course. Shut up, okay? Shen Qingzhou muttered in his head. You don't need to remind me of reality, thanks. You're welcome. No B points will be deducted for this explanation. This little bitch. Shen Qingzhou directly X'd out of the dialogue box that had popped up. He rubbed his throat and stood for a while, then realized that Luo Bingke was actually still staring at him, seemingly with no intention of attacking again. Still looking? He can't possibly be trying to make up for lost time after our years of separation, can he? Protagonist satisfaction points, plus 50. Haven't you been upgraded? Shen Jingzhou snapped at the system. Why are you omitting the reason for the point increase? Don't you dare accuse me of farming points later. I didn't even do anything. Where are these points coming from? Also, could you stop appearing for like a second? After a while, Shen Jingzhou asked out loud, What are you planning to do with your return? Lo Binka replied, I was merely reminiscing about how Shizun had treated me well, and I wanted to return to see you. Shen Jingzhou automatically comprehended that this is a declaration that Lo Binka had come back to settle old debts. Wow. Okay, sorry. Don't worry about it. In this round of questions and answers with Lo Binka, they had actually managed to be something like congenial, so Shen Jingzhou tentatively grew braver. Without changing his expression, he moved his hand to his sword hilt. Just kill me? Then what about the plague in Jinlan City? Has every resident in the city treated you well? Just to kill me. Just to kill me. Okay. Who could have expected that as soon as those words came out of his mouth, they would touch some sore spots inside of Lo Binka? It was like a cold star had fallen within his eyes, and the faint hint of a smile on his face disappeared without a trace. Shizun harbors a truly relentless hatred toward the demon race, Lo Binka said mockingly. There was a hint of forcibly suppressed anger in his voice. Hang on, I need to do that. I need to act that properly. Shizun harbors a truly relentless hatred toward the demon race. Is that better? Okay. No, I don't, actually. Lo Binka clenched his teeth. No, I should say a relentless hatred toward me. See, you do understand. Wait, what? Shen Jingzhou was speechless. He had never said that. Lo Binka took a sudden step toward him. Shen Jingzhou's expression quickly became cautious, and he retreated a step. But behind his back was a wall, and so there was nowhere to go. Their gazes collided in mid-air. Then Lo Binka seemed to realize that he was too worked up, and he closed his eyes, only opening them again after a few moments had passed. Does Shizun honestly think that I would kill, burn, massacre cities, and inevitably topple countries just because that half of my lineage? Shen Jingzhou could only keep his silence. If only he had a physical copy of Proud Immortal Demon Wei in his hand, he would have slapped it onto Lo Binka's face. If you have a smoking gun, then use it. The latter part of that 20-million-word epic was chock full of the ammunition he wanted. With all the things Lo Binka had done, the phrase kill, burn, massacre cities, and topple countries, and not a dog or fowl was spared, were barely even exaggerations for dramatic effect. When Shen Jingzhou looked down without a single word, Lo Binka took it as a tacit agreement. He sneered. Then why did you tell me not to put too much weight on race, and that no one is intolerable to the heavens? Why say such pompous things? His face abruptly grew dark, malice overflowing from between his brows as he lashed out. Utter hypocrisy, he snarled. Shen Jingzhou had been prepared for this. At this moment, he rapidly retreated, only just managing to dodge. When he turned his head, he saw that the wall he'd just been leaning against had been pulverized. Though he'd long known that after he crawled up, oh my god. Though he'd known long, that's not it, again. Though he'd long known that after he crawled back out of a place as brutal as the endless abyss, Lo Binka's temperament would change. He'd never thought it would actually be such... Whoa, oh, I said that. Okay, give me 1 sec. Okay, I'm sorry, I got really distracted for a second. Though he'd long known that after he crawled back out of a place as brutal as the endless abyss, Lo Binka's temperament would change, he never thought it would actually be such an extreme 180. Moody didn't even begin to describe him. Having known this would come about in the novel ahead of time was one thing, but seeing a once familiar person change like this was another entirely. It hit Shen Qingqiu especially hard because this outcome was basically his single-handed creation. It seemed... Oh, I didn't even turn my thing on. Okay, sorry. It seemed like Lo Bingke hadn't really intended to hit him. After venting his anger with this attack, he calmed down a bit, tilted his head, and reached out, seemingly to grab hold of Shen Qingqiu. So Shen Qingqiu hastily drew Xu Ya. It'd been a long time since he'd drawn his sword by hand. Usually he'd summon it with a sword seal, but now that he has no spiritual energy, he could only wield the blade manually. There was nothing to be done. He couldn't just offer himself up for capture. At least, in this moment, he absolutely couldn't just sit still and await death. He'd made a truly gargantuan blunder. He'd thought Lo Bingke would train for the full 5 years before he crawled out of the endless abyss. Who could have guessed that he would activate his cheats to even greater potential and speed up the process by half? And by Shen Qingqiu's calculations, the sun, moon, dew mushroom he'd been growing in... I hate saying that fucking mushrooms. Oh, okay. He'd been growing as his life-saving trump card wasn't yet at the point where he could use it. I'm sorry. I did make a bad choice of tea, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually, it doesn't mess with my throat, it just messes with my stomach. It's like too sticky. Okay, anyway. Watching Shen Qingqiu, Lo Bingke slowly raised a hand, letting him see the violet, black, demonic energy roiling in his palm. "Shizun," he said leisurely. "Take a guess. If I grab Xu Ya, how many strikes will it take before it's corroded all the way through?" "No need to guess. I'll bet 50 cents on 1 strike at most." Shen Qingqiu felt even more miserable. Lo Bingke took another step closer, and Shen Qingqiu could only raise his sword to take the attack. He had mentally prepared for Xu Ya's destruction, but in a blink, as if Lo Bingke had seen something, he started. Then he suddenly withdrew the demonic energy in his palm and caught the tip of the sword with his bare hand. Shen Qingqiu hadn't thought he would actually cut Lo Bingke. This made this the 2nd time. In this moment of shock, Lo Bingke chopped down on his wrist. Shen Qingqiu's hand loosened in pain and his sword fell, whereupon it was sent flying with a flick of Lo Bingke's finger. Lo Bingke clamped down on Shen Qingqiu's wrist with a single hand, and fresh blood flowed from Lo Bingke's palm, soaking Shen Qingqiu's sleeve. The blood kept flowing, and Shen Qingqiu started to panic, worried for no reason. No reason, my ass. While Shen Qingqiu was still in the midst of confusion, Lo Bingke flipped his hand over. "You were infected?" Some small red patches were scattered across the back of Shen Qingqiu's hand, a few more than there had been during the day. Lo Bingke's slender fingers flitted across his hand in a barely there touch, and the red patches disappeared under his fingertips. The ink, like ink, dropped in water. As expected, a little thing like this was no threat to Lo Bingke. Lo Bingke seemed to have moderated his expression. "This hand of Shizun's is plagued with misfortunes." He's so emo! He's so fucking emo! It turned out that they had thought the same thing. As Shen Qingqiu took on his spotless hand, he found himself even less able to understand the course of Lo Bingke's thoughts, given what had made him pause. Perhaps this hand had reminded him of the good old days. If Shen Qingqiu thought about it, this same limb had blocked the poisoned armor spike had blocked the poisoned armor spikes way back when. Perhaps it had rekindled some old affections? Just as he wondered this, a fist suddenly slammed into his stomach. Jeez! Jeez! Lobinka smiled. An eye for an eye. Since Shizun sowed the seeds, he should reap the bitter fruit himself. Shizun should personally make up for the wounds he gave me. Shen Jingzhou assumed that Lobinka was venting his anger for the emotional trauma inflicted on him 3 years ago by injuring his old master in a relatively comparable way. But then there was a sharp pain on his scalp, and his neck was forced to straighten so that Lobinka could press his hand to Shen Jingzhou's lips. The taste of blood flooded into his mouth. Shen Jingzhou's eyes shot wide open as he finally realized that the wound Lobinka was talking about was the one he had only just left on his hand with Xu Ya. Motherfucker, don't drink it, I absolutely can't drink this. Shen Jingzhou furiously slapped away that hand and bent over to retch up the mouthfuls of blood he had swallowed, but Lobinka dragged him back up and continued to pour blood into his mouth. Hee. Let me get this illustration up real quick. Is this gonna work? Yeah. Hell yeah. Oh my god, blood drinking? That is something else. Oh god, I love this chapter so much. Okay. Actually, I love this whole book so... Anyway, I love this whole series. Moving on. Lobinka further opened the wound on his hand. Hot blood flowed endlessly from it, yet he seemed even happier. Shizun, don't spit it out. Even though a heavenly demon's blood is dirty, you won't necessarily die from drinking it, right? He wouldn't die, but he would live a fate worse than death. Scene break. Scene break. Ah! Woohoo! Hi, gay, hi. It's pretty gay here. I mean, I need to take a break, deal with something real. Oh my god. This chapter is so fucking long. Am I even gonna finish it today? Oh, but I have to, because the next chapter. Oh, but I have to. Oh my god, okay. Let's just continue, shall we? Let's continue. We can still have this up, just for the vibes, okay? Okay. Shen Jingzhou didn't know how he made it back to the Jinzi weapons shop. Even after climbing the stairs and entering his room, he was still in a daze, and he fell straight onto the bed. He could only feel his brain, stomach, and blood churning and seething. Things were crawling about, back and forth inside them. He restlessly tossed and turned the entire night. In the distant past, heavenly demons have been able to control their blood after it left their body, and this ability had been inherited by all members of their bloodline. If someone drank their blood, death was indeed not the only possible consequence. Worst of all, said the possible consequences. What? Worst of all, said the possible consequences were numerous. That is a really strange sentence. That is a very, 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 very strange sentence. Honestly, I would kill for a retranslation. I'm sorry. It's just not the best translation. Anyway. In the original work, Lobinka had mastered control of his blood and used it for a wide range of purposes, including poison. He could even fashion it into parasitic, mite-like creatures that he could then use to destroy a target from within. He had also deployed it as a location tracker, a physical means of brainwashing, a sex tool, etc. Soaked in cold sweat, Shen Jingzhou drifted between dream and reality, and he only fell into a deep sleep at daybreak. He hadn't slept for long when a wave of earth-shaking cheers jolted him awake, and he staggered out of bed. As he'd gone to bed fully clothed, he didn't need to dress. Just as he was about to open the door, it flung open itself, and in burst a lively, bouncing youth. "The gates are open! The gates are open!" Yang Yishuan said, agitated. Agitated? Agitated? Okay. What? Those red monsters were all captured, so the gates were opened. Jinlan City finally managed to pull through, Yang Yishuan shouted. Then, at the thought of his father's death, his eyes filled with tears. Shen Jingzhou's entire body felt awful, and his head hurt like it had been split open, but he still wanted to comfort the youth. Even as he did, he thought, that was fast. They were all captured in one night. Hearing someone read this is 10 times more traumatic. Traumatic? What's traumatic about this? What is traumatic about this book? Oh no. As the gates were opened, the cultivators from various sects who had been observing from several kilometers away all poured into the city, and they gathered in a large open plaza. Mu Qingfang was also there, distributing the medicinal pills he'd prepared. Jinlan City, which had been wholly lifeless only a few days ago, was now overflowing with joy. Altogether, 7 sowers had been captured alive, and all of them were quarantined inside a Jiahua monastery barrier. Shen Jingzhou saw Lu Qingge look pensive. He went up and patted his shoulder. What happened last night? Lu Qingge threw him a look, then replied with a question. What's up with your disciple? What did he do? Last night, he caught 5, and I caught 2, Lu Qingge said slowly. He stared at Shen Jingzhou. Exactly what happened during the years Luo Binghe was missing? Luo Binghe hadn't just stolen kills from directly beneath the master of Baijian Peak's nose. He had actually beaten his kill count. This was a devastating blow to the worldview of any heir to Baijian Peak. It was practically a great shame and humiliation. And aren't these numbers official confirmation that when it comes to power levels, currently the Luo Binghe to Lu Qingge ratio is 5-2? Suddenly, the nearby disciples tempered their outcry and moved to a clear space, making a path. From not far off, the leaders of several sects walked steadily toward them. Yue Qingyuan and Huanhua Palace's old palace master arrived side by side, followed closely by the leaders of Tianyi Temple and Jiahua Monastery. Luo Binghe stood right next to the old palace master. Illuminated by the first rays of the early morning sun, Luo Binghe looked invigorated, glowing with life. When Shen Jingzhou compared himself to his old student, he became instantly depressed. Even Yue Qingyuan had something to say about it. When he passed Shen Jingzhou, he looked at him for a while and said, worried, Who is he? Okay, Yue Qingyuan. Your complexion is far too poor. As expected, I shouldn't have let you come. Shen Jingzhou gave him a hollow smile. It's only because Mu Shidi's patients were wailing and howling all night. I couldn't sleep much. Mu Qingfang had finished distributing the medicine. On returning, he also looked at Shen Jingzhou with surprise. Shishong, even with all the noise we made, it shouldn't have left you in such a dreadful state after a single night. Have you taken the medication I left in your room? I took it, Shen Jingzhou said in a rush. Please don't ask me if I've taken my meds today ever again. Hi, Aries. Hi, Poppy. What you reading? Scum villain. Where? Okay. Then a clamor surged from the other side of the crowd. Shen Qingzhou turned to look and promptly wanted to drop his forehead into his hands. A middle-aged man in mourning clothes stood at the head of a large group of men and women, and he insisted on kneeling before Luo Bingke. This was Jinlan City's governor. The governor was beside himself with emotion. Our small town was saved through the sacrifice of many cultivators. This kindness can never be repaid. If, in the future, you have any orders for us, we will fulfill them, no matter the cost. The corners of Shen Qingzhou's mouth twitched. What a standard plot development. With the monsters cleared out, it was time to collect followers and reap rewards. And at this sort of time, it was always the protagonist alone who stole the spotlight. Anyone else who contributed to the effort would be treated as part of the scenery. Even if Shen Qingzhou excluded himself, Lu Qingge had caught 2 sowers, and moments ago Mu Qingfang had been right there, distributing medicine. Luo Bingke's response was also bog standard. Please rise, Governor, he said humbly. Jinlan City made it safely through this calamity due to the efforts of many sects working together to support each other. It would be difficult for a single person's effort to accomplish such. Sorry. It's funny to me. What did I... Okay, his words and manner were sincere and appropriate. He didn't diminish his own glory, but with this, the other sects were placated. The governor was once more bursting with praise. Last night, I saw this young master single-handedly subduing those wicked things with my own eyes. Single-handedly. Such outstanding cultivation, as expected, a hero's nature is evident even in youth, and famed masters raise outstanding disciples. Palace Master, your sect's succession is in good hands. The way I would crash out. Oh! Upon hearing the words, famed masters raise outstanding disciples, Luo Bingke's smile deepened, and his gaze intentionally, or not, flitted over to land briefly on Shen Qingzhou's face, like a dragonfly touching water. Shen Qingzhou spread his fan to avoid it. During the praise, the old palace master's gaze toward Luo Bingke was filled with parental affection. Parental affection. Others might not have been able to tell, but Shen Qingzhou was keenly aware that this was the gaze of one looking at a successor/son-in-law of whom one was proud. Those 7 sowers who had been trapped together squawked and shouted, agitating the people. How should these vile things be dealt with? Someone asked. Shidi, any thoughts? Asked Yue Qingyuan. Shen Qingzhou muttered. Qingzhou has what? Why is he speaking about himself in third person? The fucking loser. Qingzhou has seen related records in old texts that sowers fear higher temperatures. It appears that only by burning them in a raging fire can we remove their body's infectious ability to bring decay. This was eminently easy to understand. Sterilization required high temperatures. Yet one cultivator protested in shock. How could we resort to such a method? If we do this, will we not be as barbaric and cruel as the demon race? All too soon, his voice was drowned out by the enraged shouts of Jinlan City's surviving citizens. During the days the plague had raged unchecked, the city had lost countless innocent lives, the victims' bodies festering in death in ways too horrible for words. A perfectly fine and flourishing merchant city had been reduced to a horrific sight. To the horrific sight it was today. At this time, anyone expressing sympathy or advocating for humane treatment of the sowers risked becoming the enemy of the entire population, A handful of cultivators who did so soon found themselves surrounded by roars of "burn them" and "burn anyone who objects alongside." Rather freaky. All MXTX protagonists use third person. I don't know why, because there's pompous little bitch. No, I'm sure it's a cultural thing, or it's like a, what's it called? Oh wait, I can take this down. Okay, I'm sure it's like a status thing or something of the sort, but he does just look like a stupid bitch. uh. Oh. Of the 7 sowers within the barrier, most of them bared their teeth, cackling with boisterous laughter and showing no signs of remorse. Shen Qingzhou supposed they probably even thought themselves heroes who'd created a bumper crop for their own race. Only a single sower, the most petite of the group, wept miserably. At the sight of this misery, sympathy swelled in some few hearts. Qin Wanyue bit her lip, then approached Luo Binghe. What the hell? Luo Binghe. Luo Shishang, that frail little sower looks so pitiful. They look so pitiful, she said, but however pitiable the sower looked, were they as woebegone? Oh, woebegone. Were they as woebegone as those who'd been infected by the plague for no reason, whose bodies had rotten until they died? Luo Binghe smiled at her, but did not answer. In Shen Qingzhou's eyes, in terms of reactions to girls, this was far too perfunctory. It probably didn't deserve a passing grade. If he thought back on the original work at this juncture, shouldn't Luo Binghe have taken the chance to express his agreement with tender and sympathetic words? How come Luo Binghe's training speed had increased while his girl wooing skills had decreased? Girl wooing skills. It's fucking stupid. But what could be done about it when Luo Binghe had a face that, regardless of angle or expression, was always as silky as jade, assured and elegant? Qin Wanyue was momentarily dazzled, and she flung the words she had just said to the back of her mind, content to continue watching from the sidelines. At this moment, something entirely unexpected occurred. That petite sower threw itself forward, slamming into the side of the barrier with a thump. Its scarlet face appeared even more sinister due to its wailing and bawling, and it shouted, "Immortal Master Shen, you must not let them burn me to death! I'm begging you, Immortal Master Shen, please save me!" Shen Qingzhou felt like some string in his brain had suddenly snapped. Who the fuck are you? What's with randomly throwing yourself around and calling for Immortal Master Shen? I really don't know you, okay? From all across the plaza, thousands of eyes summarily landed on Shen Qingzhou. We were only following your orders, the sower continued to wail. You never said that we'd be burned. WTF! What a ridiculous development. And on top of that, it was such a basic, crude accusation. Shen Qingzhou felt like he was drunk. But the old palace master's response made him feel even more inebriated. Shouldn't Immortal Master Shen provide an explanation for this exclamation? Such a low-level trick, yet someone had still believed it. Yes, someone echoed a second later. An explanation must be provided. And it wasn't only one person. The 12 Peaks rallied together against outsiders. As soon as these words were spoken, quite a few of Sangchong Mountain sect's cultivators revealed expressions of displeasure. Yue Qingyuan was even more direct. His face became stony. Ooh, okay. Anyone with eyes should be able to tell that this thing is unhappy about its impending death, Chi Ching-chi said scornfully. It wants someone to share its fate, so it's obviously framing him. All demonic evildoers are the same, yet some people are still taking the bait. How utterly laughable. Then why has it made no other claims and instead focused only on immortal Master Shen? The old palace master asked lightly. This point is worth considering as well. Literally, this scene is so funny. It's so fucking stupid. Backstabbers only forgot. That's, you know what? That's like, that's what MXTX does. She loves the gossipers. Always puts them in every time. Hello. Hi. Hi, welcome. Where was I? Yes, okay. Shen Jingzhou was wholly defeated by this logic. According to that line of thinking, any time someone was singled out and accused of something, the question of their innocence was worth considering. The bar for framing someone was way too low. Lo Binka spoke not a single word, though he stared over with rapt attention. Perhaps it was only Shen Jingzhou's imagination, but he kept feeling like those pitch-black, star-like eyes were full of smiles. In the original work, Shen Jingzhou became unpardonably loathed due to the slaughter of his own sect siblings. He personally murdered Lu Qingge, but in the present, Lu Qingge was standing right next to Shen Jingzhou. If someone tried to beat him up, Lu Qingge might even protect him, so obviously he couldn't be charged with that crime. Could it be that, no longer stained all over by crimes he hadn't committed, he had been slandered to the point that it made up the change? Given Lo Binka's character post-darkening, that wasn't impossible. A Huanhua Palace disciple suddenly stepped forward, his face decorated with a few pockmarks. This was the disciple who'd ridiculed Shen Jingzhou in the abandoned building the day before. He bowed before he spoke. Palace Master, this disciple has just discovered something and isn't sure if it's appropriate to say. Then don't say it, little puny-ass bitch. If you have something to say, then speak, Shen Jingzhou said expressionlessly. You've already opened your mouth, so why even say that you're unsure if it's appropriate to do so? How insincere. Yes, baby! Wasn't this disciple slapping his own face? Said disciple likely hadn't thought a senior would scold him. His face flared between red and white, until even the pockmarks changed color. But he didn't dare snap back and only glared viciously at Shen Jingzhou. Yesterday, this disciple and several sect siblings all realized that there were a few infected red patches on Senior Shen's arm. We saw them very plainly, but if you look today, those red patches have all disappeared. I forgot about this whole scene, I'm not gonna lie. Sangchong Mountain Sect's senior Mu said himself that the pills he provided the city were created on the spot and that they needed 24 hours to take effect. It's even possible that they won't be effective. Lo Shitong took the cure right in front of us, and the red patches on his hand have yet to fade, so why has only Senior Shen recovered so soon? His red patches have fully disappeared. Whatever the reason, this disciple thinks that highly suspicious. Shen Jingzhou sighed internally. He should have known that Lo Binka wouldn't remove the seeds of decay out of kindness. Yeah, but he did! Shut up! Oh my god. Can't wait to hear you sing at the concert later. You want to raise the sing? Yee! Thank you! Thank you, I'm excited for it too. Your voice is so pretty, it's really nice to listen to. Thank you! What the hell? Guys, stop! Nah! Oh, I need this book to actually cover my face. How do I do that? I won't cover my face! Fuck! Oh, there, that's close. Oh no. Anyway. Hey, why are you questioning it? Fuck you. my god. Fuck you guys, where was I? Na 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 na. Shen Qingzhou sighed internally. He should have known that. My shidi oversees Qingjing Peak, Ye Qingyuan said steadily. As a peak lord, he has always been a model member of the sect. His moral character is noble and unsullied. This, the entire sect both knows and understands. For everyone to believe such baseless claims so easily, you're far too susceptible to provocation. I love him. I love him. Shen Qingzhou's face was going to turn red. Chu Hai-tong, don't do this. Are you for real? If you're speaking against your consciousness just to protect me, I'll really feel awful. I'll feel really awful. Whether it's the original flavor or the current one, I bet neither of us can even touch the edge of a noble and unsullied moral character. Well, no, the original flavor could definitely touch the last word. Which has a footnote. In the original text, noble and unsullied moral character is Chinese characters, but when taken out of context, also means sex. Therefore, Shen Qingzhou jokes that the original flavor might not match the entire phrase, but with his various scandals, he definitely matches that word alone. That is very, very silly. Is that so? Asked the old palace master. That differs from what I've heard. Shen Qingzhou's heart sank. It seems like this was the day that he would be thoroughly dragged through the mud. He still narrowed his eyes. Boy, don't you know it. Since when did hearsay from other sects become the basis for conclusions on the moral character of the heir to our Sangchong Mountains Qingding Peak? Who is speaking still? Who is speaking? Actually, I have no idea who's speaking right now. If it were only hearsay, of course we would not trust it so easily. Oh, okay, this is the old palace master. If it were only hearsay, of course we would not trust it so easily. But this information came from one of your own esteemed sect's very own members. The old palace master looked all around him before he continued. Everyone must know that it is common for each sect's disciples to form friendships with one another, so hearing some rumors and gossip is inevitable. However, the matter of Peak Lord Shen deliberately abusing and doing grievous harm to the disciple under his care, this alone ought to render him unworthy of the phrase noble and unsullied moral character. Shen Qingzhou's head was going to swell. There's too many names. There are too many names. What are you guys doing? Okay. Ow! Oh, I'm sorry. I pinched my leg between my neck. Ugh! Desk. And chair. Okay, fun. Where were we? Grievous harm to the disciples under his care. This one was true. During Lo Binghe's early developmental period, Shen Qingzhou had mistreated him in every imaginable way. His glorious deeds using the protagonist as child labor could have filled a tragic novel of great suffering all on their own. The number of other disciples Shen Qingzhou had harassed or even driven out because of their talent also numbered high enough to rival a gymnastics team. It was just... Sorry. The one who'd grievously harmed them wasn't him, it was the original flavor. Since you are aware that they are only rumors and gossip, you must be aware that they do not merit discussion, Ye Qingyuan said, solemnly. It's true that my shidi doesn't typically like to pamper his disciples, but to accuse him of grievous harm is too much. A soft, sweet voice broke in. Qin Wanyue had reached her limit. She had to speak up for her beloved. Then may this woman ask sect leader Yue, would ordering a youth in his teens to face a demonic elder with hundreds of years of training, one who wore armor covered in poisoned spikes into the battle, not count as persecution and grievous harm? This time, Shen Qingzhou couldn't just chill prettily on the sidelines and listen. Whether it counts... Who is speaking? Whether it counts or not, I do not know, he said in an even tone. Who is speaking? Oh, I do not know who is speaking. I think it's Ye Qingyuan. Whether it counts or not, I do not know, he said in even tone. Wait, no, he's silent. Okay, no, this is Shen Qingzhou speaking. How far into the book? Which chapter? We are on page... we're on page 69. Chapter 6. Anyway. Whether that counts or not, I do not know, he said in an even tone. But what I do know is that an instance where a Shizun intercepts a suit of poisoned armor, pushes aside his disciple, and shields him with his own body, probably can't count as persecution. What do you think, Lo Bingke? What do you think, Lo Bingke? He's calling him out! Wish I could read books with ears, but I got a stuttering problem? Yeah, fair. That's... Bruh. I have, like, a related problem. It's not exactly stuttering, it's just, like... I don't know, ADHD, I guess? I don't know. Oh my god. Of all the cultivators present, some looked astonished to hear this name, and many of those were from Sangchong Mountain Sect. Some had merely been suspicious when they'd seen that face, such as Qi Qingqi, who was now stunned, in shock. They haven't even seen... As for a certain member of the logistics team who'd nearly fallen to his knees on the spot upon entering Jinlan City, and coming face to face with Lo Bingke after his heart had undergone a torrential bout of rain and wind, he'd since become calm and composed. Stammer. Yes, that is exactly it. Okay. Why did I never think of that word? Stammer. Huh? What? What is happening? Same problem reading a lot of it is hard, and I've been doing it for this long, so I'm not stopping. Yeah. Okay, thanks for the flower. Where was I? You guys are distracting me. La 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 la. Page 70. 70. Calm and composed. Because Shen Qingzhou had often punished Lo Bingke in the past, Ye Qingyuan had also seen him a few times, but that had been while Lo Bingke was still young. Afterward, Shen Qingzhou had elevated Lo Bingke and often sent him away from Qingjing Peak to handle all sorts of tasks, which had made it harder to actually meet him. At the Immortal Alliance conference, although he'd seen Lo Bingke's face in the crystal mirror, it had only been for a brief moment, and the mirrors hadn't been especially clear. So, Ye Qingyuan actually hadn't recognized that the shining, handsome young man at the Huanhua Palace Master's side as Shen Qingzhou's own beloved disciple. Before this moment, Ye Qingyuan had heard that the Palace Master's most highly regarded disciple was also his most senior, so he'd mistaken Lo Bingke for Gong Yixiao. Thus, at the moment when Shen Qingzhou pointed out the truth, he too was stunned. Gotta close up. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Foxy. See you later. Talk to you later. From amid the crowd, Lo Bingke stared at Shen Qingzhou with an unwavering gaze. Shen Qingzhou tilted his head and snapped open his fan. He actually had a mind to smile. Whoa. He actually had a mind to smile back, though it might have only looked like a taunting curl of his lips. It would have been nonsense to say he wasn't a bit mad. Shen Qingzhou admitted I can read. Shen Qingzhou admittedly often worried about his own life, and he had a lot of opinions about Lo Bingke. But that time he had blocked a blow for Lo Bingke had been pure instinct. Although Lo Bingke probably wouldn't have needed anyone's help to escape danger. So really, from every angle you could think of, Shen Jingzhou was the one who had been most screwed over by those 3 matches. And here they were, actually trying to use them to smear his reputation. He was furious. Unwavering gaze, Aries fanbase. Unwavering gaze. I don't have a fanbase name, so I don't know, maybe. Hello? Where the fuck was I? Actually, that's really good because wait, why is that so good? Okay, I will never dare to forget. Oh, this is Lo Bingke speaking. Okay, Lo Bingke said slowly. The kindness Shizun showed by protecting me with his own body, I will never dare to forget it. It's really you? Shen Qingzhou, didn't you say he's died? Qi Qingji said in disbelief. She looked at Lo Bingke again. Since you're alive, why didn't you return to Qingjing Peak? Don't you know that because of you, your Shizun was out of... Shen Qingzhou hastily burst into a fit of dry cough so violently that Qi Qingji had to stop and stare at him. Oh, what could she have said after that? Shen Qingzhou had the profound desire to bow and beg before her. He had a premonition that the next words he had been about to hear would undoubtedly have been out of his mind with grief. Fucking hell. He never wanted to hear those words again. A wave of goosebumps hit him. If Lo Bingke heard those words, he'd laugh hard. What? He'd laugh... Hang on. Okay. A wave of goosebumps hit him. If Lo Bingke heard those words, he'd laugh hard enough... Why can't I say hard? Hard enough to crack that platonic ideal of a male lead's face. Platonic? Platonic? What does that mean in this in this context? Fanbase name would be fun, especially the unwavering gaze. That is very silly. I think that would be a good for that. Ooh, that would actually be a good like book club name. I think. That'd be pretty fun. I read that as unwanted gaze, but I also hey, you're so mean. You're so mean. Oh man. Alright. This is exactly what's so inexplicable, the old palace master persisted. He plainly did not die, so why did you insist that he did? And why was he not willing to return when he apparently had the option to do so? Shen Qingzhou was sick of this bad faith tone. If he wasn't willing to return, there's nothing I could do. He may come and go freely, as he pleases. It's all up to him. If the palace master wishes to say something, please say it outright. The old palace master smiled. Peak Lord Shen knows what I wish to say, and anyone here with a clear mind must also understand by now. It's true that these demonic sowers should be annihilated by fire, but if there was someone directing them from behind the scenes, exacerbating the situation, we certainly cannot let them get away with it. They absolutely must explain themselves to the whole of Jinlan City. Oh, sorry. God. Why? Why though? Sorry. My bad. With these words, he successfully stoked the flames of hatred within the Jinlan City survivors. Having just suffered a great calamity, they were already terrified and bitter, itching for a target at whom to direct their rage. Quite a few people began to raise their voices in a clamor. Shizun loathes evil, said Lobinka. When it comes to demons, he only hates being denied the satisfaction of killing them personally. How then could he collude with them? Pinghe! Pinghe! This appeared to be him speaking up for Shen Qingqiu. However, he was the only one present who understood the true meaning behind the words, when it comes to demons, he only hates being denied the satisfaction of killing them personally. Having nothing to lose, Shen Qingqiu cut straight to the point. Lobinka, right now, are you a disciple of Qingjing Peak or a member of Huanhua Palace? The old palace master sneered. After all this, Peak Lord Shen is once again willing to recognize this disciple. I never expelled him from my tutelage, said Shen Qingqiu. Since he is still willing to call me Shizun, he must surely be willing to acknowledge me as such. He said these words purely with the intention of aggravating Lobinka, but it seemed he didn't succeed. Lobinka's gaze flickered, and perhaps it was an illusion, but it seemed as if his eyes had somewhat cleared. Within moments, the crowd had split into two defined camps. Sparks flew through the air, charged with hostility of an imminent battle. As for the sowers who had instigated this conflict, they were now forgotten to the side. No longer did anyone care about how they were dealt with. Then there came a woman's sweetly charming voice. Oh boy, how do I do this? I'm fine. Don't worry. Don't worry, this happens all the time. I got COVID a few years back and I was never the same. Ow! I was never the same. My voice was never fully recovered, so yeah. Unfortunate. Yes, what voice do I give her? What voice? Sweetly charming voice. Shenju. Are you Shenju? Upon hearing this name, Shen Qingqiu's serene and placid countenance nearly fissured into the Great Rift Valley. Fuck! Are the heavens determined to finish me today? I am done for. It's that woman. It's Chu Hai-tong. In the original work, Chu Hai-tong's appearance meant only one thing, and that was Shen Qingqiu's complete and utter fall from grace. Though Chu Hai-tong, her name is Hai-tong, was no longer a girl in her prime, her face was still as fair as a magnolia flower, her makeup vibrant and beautiful. Along with her slender figure and full bosom, her looks were verily striking. And since her looks were striking, she naturally couldn't escape the fate of becoming a member of Lobinka's harem. The problem was that she had once had an affair with Shen Qingqiu. Congratulations! Having had a dubious relationship with two of a stallion novel male lead's wives, the original flavor Shen Qingqiu could be considered undoubtedly unparalleled. At least in all of the stallion novels Shen Yuan had ever read, there was no second to be found. Ooh, illustration time! It's that woman! It is that woman! I love women. Illustration time! Did I skip? Wait, what? Why is that one 17? Oh, that's not supposed to be 7. That's supposed to be from earlier. Anyway, illustration. Yippee! Yippee! Where are you? Hello, where are you? Uh-oh. Oh, here it is. What? Oh no! Wait. Give me 1 second. I organized this this is a little bit out of order, so. Yippee! There she is in all her glory. She's so cute. She's so cute. Alright. Back to it. As one could well imagine, this was unequivocally the reason for that second massive flood of "castrate Shen Qingqiu, castrate or we unsubscribe" reviews in the comments in the reviews. She's so pretty. A raging barrage of fuck to the nth power bombarded Shen Qingqiu's mind. Steps away, Chu Hai-tong held her sword across her chest, as though, if it came down to it, she was ready to kill him before slitting her own throat. "I'm asking you a question. Why do you not look at me?" "Big sis, how could I dare look at you? You're here for my life!" An expression of touching sorrow filled Chu Hai-tong's face. "So that's why. No wonder. No wonder I searched for so many years but still never found you again. I see. You've already flown to the summit and become the aloof and lofty master of Qingjing Peak. How splendid!" Shen Qingqiu really didn't know where to look or what to say, so he just stared straight ahead, doing his best to keep his expression impassively detached. Everyone was whispering among themselves. Ye Qingyuan said in a low voice, "Qingqiu, this young lady is indeed a former acquaintance of yours?" Shen Qingqiu's heart flooded with tears. "Shishong, don't ask me anything anymore." "Former acquaintance," Chu Hai-tong continued sorrowfully. "I am not only a former acquaintance. This man, who looks so dignified, was once my childhood sweetheart, and I am his wife." When Lo Bingke heard this, his eyebrows began to twitch madly. Oh, man. No, you're inarguably Lo Bingke's wife. Wake up! Is this... Oh my god, what? Where did you come from? Where did this guy come from? Okay, sorry. It's just disappeared. He just pops out of nowhere. Is this really true? Shang Qinghua said in surprise. Why have I never heard Shen Qishong mention it before? Where did you come from? I love him. Shen Qingqiu curled his lips at him, giving him a fake smile. Can you stop adding fuel to the fire? Who created this awful melodramatic content for the purpose of cranking up Shen Qingqiu's scum and hatefulness points, huh? Yet you have the nerve to just stand back and enjoy the show? And all of you over there, aren't you cultivators? Why do you love gossip so much? Go away, get out! Chu Hai-tong sneered. He's a beast in a man's clothes, a degenerate wearing a cultured mask. Of course he wouldn't mention his shameful deeds. This is just so fucking ridiculous. Wait, is he in the back in this picture? No, he's not even in the back here. Well, maybe. Is that him? I don't know. Could be. I think that's Gong Yisha. I don't know. Could be anyone. It could be anyone. Master Wu Chen had interacted with this trio from Sangchong Mountain for some time and received Shen Qingqiu's care, so he had a favorable impression of him. Previously, when Sangchong Mountain Sect and Huanhua Palace had been arguing, he had been unable to interject, but he spoke up now. Amitabha, if this benefactor has something to say, please explain it properly and explain it completely. Blind accusations do not invite confidence. Shang Qinghua is the best author for real. For real. I can imagine the cultivators at dinner tables just gossiping like that's all they fucking do, apparently. Apparently. Shen Qingzhou wept to himself. Master, I know you're doing this for me, but if she explains it completely, I'll suffer even more. What I'm truly worried about isn't having done shameful deeds, it's taking the fall for the ones I didn't. Just like that, Chu Hai-tong became the focus of everyone's attention. Face flushed red with emotion, she puffed out her chest and said loudly, If a single word I, Chu Hai-tong, say from here on out is false, may my heart be pierced by 10,000s of the demon's poisonous arrows, and may I be undeserving of a peaceful death. She pointed straight at Shen Qingzhou, fury burning in her eyes. This person is now Sangchong Mountain Sect's Peak Lord of Qingjing Peak, Shen Qingzhou, the widely renowned Shu Ya sword. But no one knows what kind of thing he used to be. Girl, don't do that. Girl, you don't know. Girl, you don't know. Oh, this is making me so sad, actually. Like, I know this is a ridiculous... If you haven't read this before, this is like... Okay, you don't have the context for it, but I do, and it's... Oh! Okay. I mean, you might. You probably do. You probably read this. Okay. Her language was rather harsh, and Chi-Ching-Chi's shapely willow leaf brows rose in anger. Watch your words! God, I love her. Chu Hai-tong was now some sort of hallmaster in a small random sect, so when rebuked by a leader of a big shot organization like Sangchong Mountain, she unconsciously backed up a step. But the old palace master said, Peak Lord Chi, there's no need for anger. Why not let this young lady continue? We cannot silence people's mouths. Chu Hai-tong looked at him and clenched her teeth, the hatred in her eyes overcoming the fear, and her voice once again grew loud. When he was 12 years old, he was but a slave my family had purchased from traveling child traffickers. As the ninth child in that band, he was called Xiao Zhu. My parents saw that the traffickers had abused him and thought him pitiful, so they brought him home, taught him how to read, and paid for his food and clothing, kept him warm, fed, and free of worries. My brother also looked after him, and they were exceptionally close. When he was 15 and our parents passed, my older brother became the head of the house and freed him from his slave contract, and even recognized him as a foster brother. And I, because I had grown up with him, was deceived. I really thought that we genuinely loved each other, so we were betrothed. Shen Qingzhou stood there, forced to listen to his own, in quotations, dark history alongside those thousands of people. The thousands of thoughts in his mind had transformed into tearful silence. Tears began to well up and overflow in Chu Hai-tong's eyes. The year my brother was 19, a wandering cultivator came to our city. He saw that the area had an abundance of spiritual qi, so he established an altar at the city gates. Any young boy or girl under the age of 18 could go there for a spiritual evaluation. That cultivator wanted to select someone with exceptional talent and take them as his disciple. As he knew immortal techniques, everyone in the city admired him, and Chenju also went to the evaluation altar. His aptitude was good, and the cultivator settled on him, so he joyfully came running back, wanting to leave my family. Of course, my elder brother did not agree. In his eyes, cultivating toward immortality was purely a pipe dream. Not to mention, Shenju and I were already betrothed, so how could he abandon his family and leave now of all times? He and my elder brother had a great argument, and afterward he lost all his cheer. We thought he was only temporarily depressed, and that after he thought it through, he would naturally come to accept it. Then her expression abruptly changed. Who could have known? That very night, this man finally revealed his ugly nature. He lost his mind and killed my brother and many of our servants all at once, leaving bodies scattered all over the estate, then disappeared from the city with that cultivator that same night. After this calamity befell my household, as a lone, weak woman, I was powerless to support it, and just like that, a large estate fell apart. I searched and searched for this nemesis of mine for many years, but never found any leads. The cultivator who'd taken him as a disciple had been killed many years ago, and the dead end became even deader. Had I not come to Jinlan City today, I fear I would have spent my entire life not knowing that this vile ingrate who killed his benefactors with his own hands had actually managed to climb all the way up to the position of peak lord in the number 1 sect under the heavens. Though he is much changed from when I knew him, that face, I could not mistake that face even if it burned to ash. I'm not afraid to speak the name of the cultivator who incited him to murder either, for they are a murderer of countless innocents whose name has been on the wanted list for years. Wu Yanzi. This Wu Yanzi was notorious, with innumerable misdeeds to his name. When it suddenly came forth that one of the 12 peak lords had been his disciple, everyone was horrified. But amid the sea of sighs and gasps, Shen Qingzhou found himself growing calm. Deep down, he was actually a little skeptical. Chu Hai-tong relayed a compelling tale full of ups and downs, but the experiences she described weren't free of logical holes. Shen Qingzhou didn't mean to discriminate against the original flavor, but the novel had always tried its hardest to illustrate the unlikable traits of Shen Qingzhou's personality: pig-headed, petty, tactless, uncharismatic, antisocial, and a sham. With that kind of disposition, it was hard to believe that the young Shen Qingzhou had endeared himself so totally to people entirely unrelated to him that they would treat him as family. This guy's brain. He's so big brain. I should move a bit to the side. Hang on. Whee. Unfortunately, no one else was able to catch these sorts of details. At first, Shen Qingzhou had been afraid of this plotline, yes, but not especially afraid. There was no definite evidence to prove these stale old events had occurred other than Chu Hai-tong's testimony, so he'd figured that as long as he doubled down and refused to confess, he could make Chu Hai-tong wonder whether she had accused the wrong person. The whole affair would be no more than an indistinct smear on Shen Qingzhou's character background. It wasn't like there was anything he could do to change what had happened. Shen Qingzhou truly had wronged Chu Hai-tong, but that was the original flavor Shen Qingzhou. This new guy didn't want to carry the black pot of blame. He would have preferred to compensate her properly at a different time and place. I did it. She doesn't know so much. She was gatekept for years. She's so And anyway, he hadn't killed Lu Qingge, nor had he molested Ning Ying. He'd done nothing at all to warrant a fall from grace, like unto 100-floor skyscraper toppling in a single night. Nothing to warrant being chased down and beaten by the masses. But everything was different now. The problem was that all of the indistinct smears on his reputation had massed together. First, the sower had accused him of treachery, then came the old palace master to guide the case, and now Chu Hai-tong had appeared to denounce him. All this could together serve as proof of his dishonorable character. A scum of a man who pulled a hit and run on his lover, plus a traitor colluding with the demon race, plus a disciple of a wanted fugitive. What an excellent example of making something already perfect even more so, like adding flowers to brocade. I'm just checking how many more pages I have. Okay, we can do this. As things that seemed to be perfectly aligned by pure coincidence accumulated, People no longer take them to be coincidental. Sect leader Yue, favoritism has no place when one deals with this kind of matter, said the old palace master. Otherwise, word may get out that a magnificent sect like Sangchong Mountain harbors such unsavory characters. How would you explain yourself to the masses? Ye Qingyuan showed no reaction. So what is the palace master saying? As I see it, let us make temporary arrangements for immortal Master Shen in Huanhua Palace. A decision can be made after the matter is thoroughly investigated. How about it? Everyone knew what these arrangements actually meant. Beneath the foundations of Huanhua Palace's residence for short-term stays was the water prison. Its terrain was complicated, made even more so by Huanhua Palace's maze array. This secret array of theirs was on an entirely different level from the ones they used to keep non-cultivators away from the palace. On top of that, the interior of the water prison was heavily guarded, and it boasted a complete set of torture chambers and unrelated equipment. Related equipment. Incomparably professional. Without exception, every single person incarcerated within that place was a cultivator guilty of terrible crimes, their hands dyed in blood, or one who'd violated the most serious taboos. To put it simply, Huanhua Palace's water prison was the public prison of the cultivation world. In addition, whenever some cultivator was under suspicion of endangering the human realm, they would be sent to the water prison to be held in custody while awaiting their trial. This joint public trial would be held by the 4 major sects before they delivered their final sentence. Lu Qingge sneered. Done talking? Oh, I love him! Oh, I love him! He had patiently listened to this nonsense for too long already, and his heart had been seething with anger for ages now. He grabbed Cheng Luan where it was on his back, his stance poised for a fight. Across from Sangchong Mountain sect, Huanhua Palace's disciples also drew their swords, one after another, glowering just the same. Lu Shidi, stand down, said Ye Qingyuan. Though Lu Qingge was unwilling, if he absolutely had to obey someone, it would only concede to Ye Qingyuan. He forced his hand away from the hilt of his sword. As he stepped back, Ye Qingyuan nodded. These sorts of accusations cannot be made lightly. The all-black longsword at his waist abruptly sprang an inch from its sheath, revealing a blindingly snow-white blade. Boy! Sir, stop it! Put that away! Put that shit away! In an instant, it was like an invisible net had been cast over the entire plaza. The spiritual energy within that space roiled restlessly like the tides. The incessant hum from Ye Qingyuan's sword sounded like it was droning within the ear itself. A number of the younger disciples instinctively covered their ears, their hearts pounding restlessly. Xuansu! Everyone was floored. The reason Ye Qingyuan had ordered Lu Qingge to step down was so he could step up to fight himself. Unbelievable! Reportedly, ever since the Sangchong Mountain sect's peak lord of Qingding, Ye Qingyuan had succeeded his position. He'd only Ever since Ye Qingyuan had succeeded his position, he'd only drawn his sword twice. Once during his succession ceremony, and once when he'd battled a descendant of the heavenly demon bloodline. Incidentally, Lu Binghe's dad, in parentheses. In fucking parentheses! In parentheses! Xuanzu had only been drawn an inch, but everyone suddenly understood why. If one wished to sit on the top of Chongding Hall, I'll never get that right the first try, Chongding Hall, a calm and mild temperament assuredly wouldn't get you there on its own. Formations, the old palace master called. Was this the cadence of an imminent battle? The demons haven't even fought their way into this mess, and the humans were ready to start fighting among themselves. Knowing the situation would only worsen, Shen Jingzhou promptly removed his sword and threw it in front of him. Zhu Ya stuck straight up to the ground, before the Huanhua Palace Master. Giving up one sword was equivalent to surrender, an agreement to comply with the verdict. The old palace master snatched up the sword Shen Jingzhou had turned over and waved his sect members back to their places. Shidi, Yue Qingyuan murmured quietly. Shishong, there's no need to say any more, said Shen Jingzhou. Those who are clean will remain clean no matter what. Jingzhou is willing to accept arrest. Between old palace masters Between the old palace masters senility. Is that how you pronounce it, like that? Scum time! Hi, Shidin. Salinity? No, senility. Okay. Senility? Reading is so fun! Between the old palace masters senility clamping down on the notion of his guilt and the combo attack of the sower and Chu Hai-tong being imprisoned. Whoa, hang on. That was so bad. Between the old palace master's senility clamping down on the notion of his guilt and the combo attack of the sower and Chu Hai-tong being imprisoned was just the last nail on the coffin. Anyway, this sequence of events had unfolded in the original work. Shen Jingzhou had thought he could avoid it before, but he hadn't expected things would still circle back to this set plot arc. Why force Sangchong Mountain and Huanhua Palace to have a falling out as well? Shen Jingzhou persisted. Saying more will help no one. The truth will prove itself. After he spoke, he didn't look to see Yue Qingyuan's expression, but swept a glance at Luo Bingke. He saw neither joy nor anger on that face. Luo Bingke stood steadily in place, cutting a clear contrast with the cultivators swaying and covering their ears around him. Ooh. After some time, Yue Qingyuan finally sheathed his sword. It was like that giant net was drawn away from the air. Shen Jingzhou turned toward Yue Qingyuan and gave him a deep bow. When he thought about it, he had made a lot of trouble for his Jiangmen Shishong. He was honestly ashamed. Chu Hai-tong was still sobbing incessantly. Qin Wanyue walked over and tried to comfort her. Miss Chu, whatever the state of affairs, the 3 sects will give you an answer. She said 3 sects to wholly exclude Sangchong Mountain, making her position clear. Chu Hai-tong was moved, tears in her eyes. She looked up to thank Qin Wanyue, but upon seeing Luo Bingke standing alone to the side, she couldn't suppress the blush that suffused her cheeks. Doing my best to hear over my mom having a loud phone call on speaker. That's so real. Shen Jingzhou internally rolled his eyes. Theoretically, he was getting cucked right in front of his face. So why didn't he feel even the slightest bit unhappy? A group of Huanhua Palace disciples led by Gong Yizhao walked up to him. The lengths in their hands were all too familiar. Hello, immortal binding cables. Goodbye, immortal binding cables. Thought Shen Jingzhou, mentally waving as he did so. Senior Shen, my apologies, said Gong Yizhao, sounding honestly sorry. This junior will treat you with due respect. Before the truth comes to light, I will not let you suffer any slight. I'll see about that. Shen Jingzhou nodded, though he spoke only a couple of words. in reply. Thank you for your trouble. What use is it if you're the only one treating me with due respect? One look at the expression on those Huanhua Palace disciples' faces, and he knew every single one was itching to eat him alive. After all, Huanhua Palace was the sect that had suffered the most serious casualties at the Immortal Alliance conference. There was certainly more suffering to be had. With his torso bound by immortal binding cables, Shen Jingzhou felt his body grow heavy. When Without a Cure intermittently flared up, he only felt the circulation. Hello? Sorry. Forgot to turn that off. With his torso bound, when Without a Cure intermittently flared up, he only felt the circulation of his spiritual energy become congested. Like if the connection was bad, but if you smacked the remote, you could still make do. Once the immortal binding cables were fastened, his spiritual energy was completely obstructed, reducing him to an ordinary mortal. Wow! We shall set the date of the trial to 1 month from now. What does everyone think? Said the old palace master. 5 days, said Lu Qingge. Goat. The longer Shen Qingzhou was imprisoned in the water prison, the more various tortures he would have to bear. The 5 days, Lu Qingge demanded, was the least amount of time into which the preparation procedures for the trial could be compressed. The old palace master was, of course, unwilling to compromise. If it is so hurried, I'm afraid there will be many oversights. Jiahua Monastery were professional mediators. One of their masters suggested, what about 10 days? 7 days, said Ye Qingyuan. No longer. Oh, they're so fucking sexy. They're so. With all the sect leaders haggling, Shen Qingzhou began to feel like he was standing in a food market. However, he had his own considerations and hurriedly cut in. There is no need for more back and forth. Listen to the palace master's plans. 1 month. If he could delay things further, it would be better for the growth of the doom mushrooms. He shot a look at Shang Qinghua out of the corner of his eyes and raised an eyebrow. Understanding his intentions, Shang Qinghua let his hands fall in front of him, subtly making a gesture of, no problem, leave it to me. However, the success of this plan depended on if Shen Qingzhou could really last a month in Huanhua Palace thoroughly under Luo Binghe's control. That's the end of the chapter. Okay. That's the end. That's the end. That's it. What is gonna happen to the water, Franklin? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, he's gonna be tortured. Yeah, the next chapter is called Water Prison. So that's what happens. Torture! Yeah, whoop! Let's go! Let's go, baby! God, whoa, this chapter is really long. Yeah, that'll probably be split up into 2 streams. Anyway, that's all for today. Ugh. I love this. I love it so much. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Yeah. That is all for today, and now my ad is running. So, am I able to raid into someone while I have an ad running? I don't think I can. I don't think I'm able to. You know, we kept this picture up like for so long since the illustration was since the moment of the illustration arrived. It's just because that was the whole scene. Was this? Anyway, that's that. I'll put my book down. Oh yeah. I think we're just gonna skedaddle. We're just gonna skedaddle, alright? By the way, if you're following me on Twitch and not on YouTube, what are you doing? And likewise, if you're following on YouTube and not on Twitch, what are you doing? What are you doing? No offense, but that's a little silly. I do stream on Twitch more often than I do on YouTube. So I do like art streams and other silly stuff. And a lot of love in D-Space. Oh, well, I do that on Twitter. No, not Twitter. What am I saying? YouTube too, so whatever. Anyway. Follow my socials. Me. Alright. But I will see you later. Plate up. You're so right. We gotta get back on Plate Up. Ugh. Cookielicious. Hi, welcome. But also I'm leaving now, so bye. Oh my god. You don't want to cook. Anyway, I gotta go, but the ad is still in progress, so what am I supposed to do? I have to sit here for 20 more seconds. Okay. Okay. It's been a great time today. Thank you so much for hanging out. It really means a lot when you know, like why would I be doing this if no one's here? But yeah, thanks for showing up. And having fun with me and with this book. The vamping is funny? What does that mean? My discomfort is funny? Wow, that's so rude. This guy's so rude. What the fuck? Alright, yes, I will take my leave now. Thank you so much for being here. Stay safe as best you can in these trying times, alright? Stay safe and mask up. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.